Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Saucy Mike, and today we're going to be smoking some ribs. Now, it's always a well-known rule that whenever you're smoking a tougher cut of meat, whether it be some ribs or even a brisket, that you always want to wrap it at some point during the smoking process. But I had an idea. I wonder what would happen if we did one where it wasn't wrapped, one where we wrapped it in foil, and one where we wrapped it in butcher paper. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So first, to start out with, I wanted to trim up this rib a little bit. You can see kind of like right here, the bone sticking out, but I want to make sure that this is nice and pretty. So we're going to square it up just a tad. So we're going to go ahead and feel right for that little cartilage piece right here. If you have a rib, you can feel it's right there. We're just going to go down, make the line. And you can kind of hear it crunch right there. And then once you have that piece of meat here, you can see, hopefully you can see, but this is just a piece of meat. It has a little bit of that cartilage in there. It's still good to eat. If you want to, you can smoke this by itself, make you some little riblets, or you can even throw this in a green chili verde, which we might do. We might make a video on that pretty soon. But we're gonna go ahead and get the rest of this cut up. Now for our ribs today, we're actually doing 2 slabs of spare ribs and a slab of baby back ribs. I would be doing all 3 spare ribs. However, this was the last pack that they had. So I got to go with some baby back ribs. These don't really need as much trimming as the spare ribs do. They don't have that extra cut of cartilage and rib meat there. So these are fine just as they are. And then what we're gonna go ahead and do is get some of this fat trimmed up a little bit. We don't want to take off too much. Fat is always flavor. And then we just want to make sure that we expose some of that meat a little bit. So we're just going to trim this up, make sure that any connective tissue or sinew on here gets taken care of, because you don't want to bite into that whenever you're eating the rib. It's going to be all chewy and nasty. I think that's fine on that one. This one doesn't really need too much. Now, one of the next things that we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and get some of this membrane off, because it's really chewy. We want to make sure that we're exposing a lot of that meat out, so that way we can get a lot of good seasoning down in there. What you can do is get a butter knife, and where the bone is, just shove it right through, and then you can easily just take your finger and just start to peel it. It's not very difficult at all. Just peel it that way, and it might come off in a couple pieces, but you really want to make sure you get most of it off. And some people, they don't remove it, or they might even just score it a little bit. I know I've worked in restaurants where they just score it, but like I said, I really want to focus on getting the seasoning on that meat as opposed to the membrane itself. So we're just going to remove it all together. Now for our binder today, we're going to be using some regular old yellow mustard. It's all right if you don't like the taste of yellow mustard. You can really use any hot sauce or Worcestershire sauce, but it's just not going to really matter, because you're not going to really taste this at the end of the day after you're done cooking it. So we're going to go ahead and rub this in, make sure we get it nice and coated. And this is really just to help our seasoning stick on. Like I said, you're not going to taste any of this, not if any at all, at the end of this cook. But we're just going to smear it over, make sure we got some nice coverage here, spread it out nice and evenly. And we're going to go ahead and flip these on the other side and do the same thing. And for our seasoning, we're gonna go ahead and use 2 types of seasonings. We got this AP seasoning from Malcolm Reed, his Killer Hogs barbecue seasoning. This is just gonna be our base and to get a nice, good overall flavor on it. And then we're gonna go over with some of this Bayou seasoning. I saw it there in the selection at Walmart, and I thought that it could be interesting to have some Cajun style ribs. That's what we're gonna do. So go ahead and get that first layer on, and we're just gonna follow up with some of this seasoning. It's gonna be really good. It smelled good. I tasted a little bit before I put it on here just to see what the flavor profile is like. Obviously, it's going to be Cajun, but I just wanted to see if there's a little bit of spice to it. But I have a high spice tolerance, so I really couldn't taste anything. We'll really know once my wife tries this and see how she does with it. Make sure you get a lot of that meat covered. You don't really want anything to not be covered. You want this to be as flavorful as possible. And we're going to do that same thing, starting off with that AP rub and follow up with that Bayou seasoning. Really just kind of pat it down in there. I know a lot of people, what they like to do is they like to mush it around, massage it a little bit. That's not really necessary. Plus, it'll give it a weird texture at the end. So So we're gonna go ahead and just pat it down, press that seasoning in. We're gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes, let some of that moisture get pulled out from the seasoning. Then after that, we're gonna be using our pellet grill today. It's a little bit cold outside, so I'm trying to make sure that I stay inside and keep warm. We're gonna be smoking this at about 275 degrees. And like I said, we're gonna be wrapping these at different points. This one's not gonna be wrapped at all. This one's gonna be wrapped in aluminum foil. And then this one's gonna be wrapped in butcher paper to see if there's really a difference in what we're having here. It's cold out here, so we're gonna get these things really wrapped up. It's very easy. Like I said, we got some foil here. We're gonna lay this meat side down, so that way any residual juices that come off of it, they'll kind of go to the bottom, really get it really nice and tender. And then what we're gonna do from there is just fold this over real nicely. And you wanna make sure that you kind of keep it nice and tight. You wanna wrap it nice and tight because there's not a lot of moisture coming out. After we get this folded over, we're gonna go ahead and fold in these ends like this. This also makes it very easy for whenever we go and unfold it, because we're gonna cook this probably for about another hour and a half, 2 hours, really, until it's kind of probe tender with our thermometer. So we got it just like that. Normally I'll put some butter on it, but I don't wanna really change the flavor too much of these ribs. I wanna make sure that all these ribs taste as even as possible, aside from them being wrapped differently and not being wrapped. So we got that one with the foil. We're gonna go ahead and take our ribs here. Same thing, we're gonna fold this one up. Hold it nice and tight. And then same thing. And actually what I might do for this one, since it's not gonna stick as much as the aluminum, I'm gonna go ahead and flip it around. And then I'm gonna fold it just like that. And it'll unfold just for a second, but that's all right. I'm gonna fold the other end here, bring it down nice and tight. So that way, whenever we set this back in our smoker, that weight of the meat is gonna keep the paper held down. So we're gonna go ahead and place this back in the smoker. Again, we're keeping it right at 275, or at least the pit boss is over here. We're gonna place this back and let it cook for another hour and a half to 2 hours. All right, so one of the last things that we're gonna be doing here, I know it's getting dark and it's actually starting to snow a little bit. The last thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna get these ribs nice and glazed. So I'm gonna go ahead and unwrap these. Our unwrapped ribs are looking really good. They got a nice bark on it. We're gonna go ahead and unwrap the foil ribs, see how these are looking. And these look amazing. Be very, very careful. These are super tender. So we gotta be very careful whenever we're pulling these out. I'm gonna set these aside right here. Go ahead and set your foil aside. You don't really need that unless you wanna make some kind of sauce or add it to your barbecue sauce, whatever you wanna do. Let's see if I can carefully show this to the camera. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but these look delicious, nice and juicy, super tender. These are almost falling out of my hands right now. Then we're gonna go ahead and see how we're looking with the butcher paper here. And I tell you, man, these all smell delicious. And these butcher paper ones, these are tender too. These ones seem a little bit more flimsy or have a little bit more body to it. So these ones, it's pretty much what I expected. With the butcher paper, some of that moisture is able to escape. So it's not gonna get as tender, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Because with the foil, what happens is a lot of that moisture gets trapped in that foil. Let's like the steam just kind of tenderize it, kind of steam it almost like you're broiling it in a sense. With the butcher paper, that moisture is allowed to escape, but it's also making it to where moisture can't really come back in. So there's pros and cons to this. So what we're gonna do it one side at a time. I got this nifty little bottle brush right here. This is just some of the Killer Hogs vinegar sauce. So we're gonna go ahead and put some of this on, glaze some of that barbecue sauce on here. Not too much, just enough to really kind of coat it. I want it to get kind of sticky, almost like a candied rib in a sense. So we're just gonna make sure this is painted on very nicely. And do the same over here. Start pouring it a little bit on there, then we're gonna paint with the brush, almost like we're Bob Ross. But this is gonna be delicious. I'm super excited. These, man, I haven't tell you how long it's been since I've had ribs. It's just been so cold outside. You can see we got some snow over here. That's not gonna stop us. We're still gonna put some barbecue on our pit master here. So we got our backside nice and coated. We're gonna go ahead and throw this back into the smoker just for about 5 minutes. We just want some of that sugar to kind of caramelize and get a little bit of stickiness to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there now. All right, so our ribs just came out from that 5-minute glazing. We're gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Like before, just put a little bit on, not too much. And we're just gonna paint this on here nicely. And I can already tell from the bottom side that these are gonna come out delicious. The glaze is nice and sticky. It's gonna have a good bite to it, give it some nice texture, and also add some of that great flavor. All right, we got our top sides glazed. We're gonna go ahead and throw these back in the smoker again for another 5 minutes. As soon as we pull them out, we normally do a rest, but like I said, guys, it's freezing out here. We're just gonna slice into these, see how we did, and see if there's really a difference between butcher paper, aluminum foil, and nothing at all. Alrighty guys, our ribs are finally out. We're gonna go ahead and take our knife and we're gonna slice into these really quick, get a good taste test and see if there really was a difference in all of these different methods, okay? So first up here, we're slicing up. This one's gonna be our butcher paper wrap. This one should have a little bit more texture just because we did let some of that moisture escape in that butcher paper. So this one should have a little bit more texture whenever we're taking a bite. All right, we got everything nice and sliced up. We're gonna go ahead and first we're gonna try the butcher paper wrap and see how we did. Very tender, very juicy, very flavorful. You can really see that you get a good clean bite. Doesn't mean that it doesn't come clean off the bone. As you can see, it came clean off. But also, when you have that bite, it just makes it have like such a wonderful texture. It's so good. Now we got our foil wrapped ribs. Let's see how we did on these. This is way more tender than the butcher wrap, which was expected because that moisture was trapped in here to make it kind of steam at a low temperature. It's so good. And you can see the other one came clean off the bone as well, but this one, you can literally just pull it off. That bone is clean. There's nothing there. It's right here. And now we have our unwrapped baby back ribs. These were a little bit tougher to cut into, so I'm kind of curious on if that's just because how I cooked them with the no wrap. My suspicion that it is, but let's see how they taste. So that one was delicious too. I'd say as far, you can see I didn't even give you a chance to talk. I was trying to eat it. As far as tenderness goes, I think this one's just a little bit less tender than the butcher wrapped one. So this concludes that the foil wrap will give you the most tender rib that you can get. But I think my overall personal favorite was this butcher wrapped one. A lot of people, what they like in their ribs is they like fall off the bone ribs. Don't get me wrong, I love a good fall off the bone, but I prefer to have that extra meaty bite to it. I like that little chew that you have. And I think the butcher paper gives you a good balance between tenderness and that chewiness, that good texture that you get. So if you were asking me, I would definitely recommend butcher paper overall, but there's nothing wrong with using foil. And if you don't have any, then as you can see here, there's nothing wrong with smoking this on a low temperature because these came out perfect as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know what your favorite type of barbecue is. I know it's cold right now, but we're gonna start to be leaning into that spring weather here pretty soon. So I wanna make sure I'm getting videos out for you guys so that way you guys can be cooking outside and inside as well. But I appreciate all of you. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay saucy.